Good afternoon and welcome to another session on international business, marketing and strategy. My name is Professor Michael Czinkota. I'm with the McDonough School of Business at Georgetown University. I'm joined today by a dear friend, Mr. Joseph Lynch, who is the Managing Director of Virginia Energy Exchange LLC, but more importantly, he's an alumnus of Georgetown University, where some moons ago he went to the college and studied history. But in spite of that, he's been a very successful businessman. His offices are in Arlington, Virginia, in Chicago, and in New York City. Joe, welcome, and tell us a little bit about Virginia Energy Exchange.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Virginia Energy Exchange is a new corporation just formed within the last couple of years. We have a group of individuals. A retired Brigadier General, U.S. Air Force, Tim White, is one of our partners. Pete Velde, who has worked in the Capitol for a number of years. Bob Lynch from New York is a finance man, and myself. And our job is to coordinate energy usage in the United States and see how we can market the capabilities overseas.
In our conversations, you told me about some of your business activities in Taiwan, others in Russia, but also in Oman, and in the past you've had activities, I understand, in Saudi Arabia. And why don't you tell us a little bit under the theme, what I really would like us to cover today is how do we build trust in international business? And here all these people are so far away, they think different, they act different. How do you develop and build cooperation and trust?
Michael, it takes, like any trust building in a business relationship or a personal relationship, it takes time. A lot of this can be done in using today's technology, such as internet, emails, etc. But ultimately it comes down to the face-to-face meetings, which does take a lot of time and a fair amount of money to be able to do it. In Taiwan in particular, we've been very lucky with the people that we've dealt with over there. China Steel Aluminum Corporation, we have been dealing with them for about 2.5 years. They're located in Kaohsiung, Taiwan, which is a southern portion of the country, and the industrial base. They've been very good to us. We've worked hard with them. Part of the relationship we started in meeting the general manager of the company over there, and then that morphed into, and this was very fortuitous, in meeting a expat American by the name of Brian Aiello, who is a retired Grumman engineer. He's lived over in Taiwan for about 13 years, and he is also president of the American Chamber of Commerce. And in fact, Professor Michael, when you were over there, you had an opportunity to meet Brian. So that helps with the contacts in Taiwan. As far as Russia is concerned, that is through General White here in Washington, or Arlington, Virginia, who has befriended one of the top attorneys in Moscow, who does personal work for the president of Russia. And we're working with them regarding Rusal, which is the largest aluminum manufacturer in the world. Trying to help them market their product in what is a very difficult economy right now. Oman, I have to give credit to you, Professor Mike, because we met the commercial attaché, Shireen Saeed, who is in the Oman embassy here in Washington, and we've been talking to her and have had negotiations. They have a burgeoning aluminum industry, which is part of my expertise in Oman. They need our help in marketing some of their product in the United States. The fact that they just signed recently, within about the last year and a half, FTA agreement helps immeasurably in being able, in being able to market their product in the United States.
Now, given your explanations, obviously you're mainly doing business to business. marketing rather than consumer marketing. And tell us a little bit, how do you get really started in that? How do you discover when there's an opportunity or a problem that you can deal with abroad?
A lot depends upon the contacts that we have overseas. It's important when any of us are in Taiwan, or I'll be going to Oman very shortly, to meet the various ministers. For example, I have to go back to Taiwan because that's where I have most of the experience. We have met the Vice Minister of Economic Affairs, who controls the Energy Division. The Energy Division is controlled by the Bureau of Energy as far as the government is concerned. Ultimately, the utility company in Taiwan is Taipower, and they will sign the contracts. We have a memo in front of the chairman of Taipower on a variety of different topics that they're interested in. Due to the tragedy in Japan at Fukushima, there is major concern in Taiwan about the use of nuclear reactors. They have 4 plants, 3 of which are operational. The 4th plant is a big question mark. The local population does not want them to start the 4th plant. What do you do with, let's say, $2.5 billion US that you've invested in it? That's one thing, one issue. But also, I believe the more serious issue is, where do you get the product? Where do you get the electricity that that plant was going to produce? And that's a big issue in Taiwan because their electric rates are starting to go up. They are a large user of coal in Taiwan, but they want to minimize that as much as possible because of environmental concerns. So we're talking to them about something that's near and dear to the American economy right now, is natural gas. Natural gas, because of fracking, is developing quite substantially in this country. Up until recently, you couldn't export it. We were net importers of natural gas. Now they're starting to export it, and we're talking to the people in the state of Maryland next week about the latest permit that was granted for the export of natural gas, and that's going to be in Cove Point, Maryland, which is very close to Baltimore. That's going to be an important element because they're going to draw the natural gas from Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, etc., and then export it overseas. That'll be good for business in the United States, and it will help the environment overseas because natural gas will burn cleaner than coal will. So these are the different things that we work on.
Let me come back to the issue of trust, building international trust. Of course, with Taiwan right now, there is this golden situation, I'd call it, which demonstrates how important universities can be when bringing together people, forming networks, because the new foreign minister of Taiwan, sure enough, is a Georgetown alumnus. And here we have Mr. Joe Lynch, a Georgetown alumnus. So the conversation becomes somewhat easier because there are a lot of shared experiences. But tell me other ways in which you can create and grow trust, both on the side of your partner, but also for you yourself and your team.
It takes time, Professor Michael. My own personal feeling is you have to spend the time and you have to go over and visit the people, see what their culture is, understand what they're trying to accomplish. I mean, they speak English very well. I speak English fairly well. I don't speak any Chinese. But the point is, they still do things differently in a cultural aspect. They're concerned about the size of the United States and the behemoth as far as our economy versus their relatively small economy. They're very proud of what they've done, and they've done a marvelous job. Formosa, to a certain extent, like Japan, has no natural resources. So basically, their biggest natural resource, in my mind, is what's above their shoulders, what they do with their brains, what they can do in terms of working hard. To build the trust, from my point of view, I have to say it still takes time. We were dealing with a division of China Steel, which is the biggest steel industry over there, and I was told by an American engineer they're very hard to deal with. I made a cold call based upon introductions from other people, and I couldn't get anywhere on the phone or through email. So I had to go over and sit down with them and talk business. And that took some time. It took months to be able to build that, which from a business point of view, a few months is a relatively short period of time. It doesn't take years, but they had to feel comfortable in terms of them trusting me, meaning could I produce what I said I could do? Okay, this was millions of dollars of used equipment. Could I sell the equipment, which we eventually did, to Egypt and to Indonesia? They fully got paid their expected price, so they were happy with the results. On the other side, quite frankly, in terms of trust, using just one example, without mentioning the country, but one of my potential customers tried to get China Steel to breach the written contract they had after we had hundreds of thousands of dollars down in cash. They tried to get them to breach the contract because they wanted to buy direct and eliminate us as a middleman. China Steel said, nope, this is a contract that we had with our company, and they stood by it. Well, when you go through situations like that, they know who I was, they understood what we were trying to accomplish, we did what we said we could do, and yet from my point of view, I found out you could trust them substantially, because it would have been relatively easy for them to breach that contract and say, fine, give me my money back, or just even keep it if necessary. And they didn't do that. They stood by the contract, and they stood by us, and therefore I ended up trusting them quite a bit based upon that specific example.
Thank you for giving us this example. In previous conversations, you've also had rousing endorsements in terms of trust for Taiwan and other nations you've dealt with. And that's, of course, very good to hear. Let me, in conclusion, ask you, for a young person starting out in international business, wanting to make a mark, wanting to make progress, what is your advice that should be heeded early on to be well situated and have a chance for success?
I think you have to keep an open mind. I deal with college graduates or people going to college in Taiwan, and I try to give them my little idioms, carpe diem, okay, as one of them. But the other one, which they had a little bit of difficulty understanding in Taiwan, is and I'd like to tell your students the same thing. The world is your oyster. You can make it what you want if you work hard at it. You have to persevere, and that's probably the one talent that I have, is perseverance. I just don't give up until we reach the goal that we set. And that's what I'd like to leave your students with. There's a great opportunity out there. It's a wonderful world, and you can do a lot. And you can do a lot of good for humanity, too.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph Lynch, Managing Partner of Virginia Energy Exchange. And thank you to our audience for coming and listening and watching. And I hope we'll see you here again soon. Thank you.